What's going on, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar, and tonight I have this lovely lady to my right joining me.
Hello, I am Ødfel. I've been on this channel a couple times in the past. I'm a cosplayer, and I also talk a whole bunch of nerdy things from comics to movies.
Yes, cosplay. And where can people find you when you're not hanging out on this channel?
I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, you name it, under this username. The only thing is on Twitter, it is a 0 instead of an O.
There you go. So yeah, follow her. She gets to do all these cool things like not just review movies, but also go to movie premieres of
Yes.
MCU, which is really cool. So thank you for the people that are joining us live. Tonight we're going to be talking about Eternals. We're going to be doing a kind of a basic plot synopsis with the non-spoilery, and then getting into some spoilers because we're going to be talking about some Easter eggs, especially that ending,
Oh, man.
and then talk about what we expect. Of course, we're going to be talking about what we thought of the movie, whether we liked it, whether is it as bad as the critics made it out to be, or where we think it lays in the scheme of the MCU. So before we get started, though, I do want to warn people just ahead of time. I'll let you all know when we're going to talk about spoilers. I'll put a banner at the bottom. Have you read any Eternals?
No.
Your Eternals, okay. So
I,
probably.
I, I didn't want to before the movie because I didn't want to have
Mhm.
preconceived ideas since they have changed so many things in the past, like with Guardians. But now that I've seen it, I'm kind of open to like, okay, now I could go back and read some and probably be happy.
Uh, just getting it out there. The Eternals have been a part of Marvel that never clicked with me. Whether it was Jack the King Kirby's original concept, Peter Gillis, Neil Gaiman, just anytime they ever try to bring the Eternals back and make it happen, it just never did it for me. I did really like, though, the new series by Gillen. I think he has been kicking all kinds of ass on that series, and the artwork is great. I like
Oh,
a
yeah.
little bit of the retcon that they're doing. Um, so going into this, honestly, I wasn't expecting anything because I was curious how they were going to do this, because they could take this and make it into a pocket little universe, right? Just floating out there. These characters have always been part of this. And the other only thing I had heard about this was that it was supposed to be the most unique Marvel movie. I can't remember if that was a critic or if that was Kevin Feige. Somebody had stated that this was a unique MCU experience. So, uh, let's go ahead and start talking about this. So, this movie I think was supposed to be originally released in 2020, if I'm not mistaken,
I
because
think so.
COVID and everything else that happened. It got delayed, and here we are. It is the second Marvel theatrical release this year, the first being Shang-Chi exclusively, because I know that Black Widow was both released digitally and in the theater on the same day. But this is the second Marvel release exclusively to theater. And The Eternals is a basic premise of these beings, these godlike beings, have been living on Earth for 7,000 years. They come from a planet called Olympus. They were sent here on to Earth by a celestial being, which in the MCU we have seen a celestial being a little bit in the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's where Nowhere is located. They live on a celestial head, and that's also where we get to see, like when the Collector's showing them the Infinity Stones. Like you see the Celestial, you see how big these creatures are. So this giant Celestial sent these beings here to Earth to get rid of the deviants and to let mankind just live their lives and don't interfere and do not interfere in their lives, no matter how much you want to help, including a purple dude coming here and wiping half of humanity out. You cannot interfere unless there is deviance. So we see their lives as they go through major historical parts, like and we'll go back and touch on some points, but we get to see them for 7,000 years. A couple of the characters fall in love. You have the character of Icarus and Cersei fall in love, get married. They've been together for 5,000 years. And then fast forward to present day, Cersei is a curator at a museum, and she is hanging out with this guy named Dane Whitman. And if you're familiar with the comic books, Dane Whitman is, of course, the Black Knight. And he goes in and out of the movie. Lots of characters go in and out of the movie. It's a long movie. It's 2.5 hours. And yeah, so their job is to take care of deviants. And deviants are these big creatures. They're a little different than they look in... Actually, they're a lot different than they look in the comic book. They look like CG dog creatures. That's the best way I can describe them. CG dog creatures. And apparently they didn't get rid of all of them because one awakens and is able to absorb the powers of the Eternals. Now they have to figure out, they have to bring the team back together after they broke apart. And that's pretty much it. There's secrets and twists and turns, which we'll get into in the spoiler section. But that's it. And before we go in the spoiler section, I will have to say, this is, as far as location, one of the prettiest Marvel movies I've seen. Like, they actually go to locations. There's some practical effects that they use, which is really cool.
The locations, the soundtrack, if nothing else, I would suggest seeing it in theaters to be able to take in the soundtrack on like a nice theater surround system, because it's probably one of the prettiest soundtracks I think Marvel has ever put out.
You know, I'll be honest, I don't remember anything except for the theme of when Icarus is fighting. That was the only thing that really stuck out. But you have characters in here. You have the characters of the Eternals. You have all based on the comics. You have Cersei. You have Icarus. You have Athena, Ajax. You have Kingo, Sprite. Oh my goodness, Phastos, Makari, Druig, and Gilgamesh. And you even get Domo if you've read the comics, who's not a character, but their ship. So in a way, Domo kind of makes an appearance. And there's your free Easter egg for the non-spoilery part. Now, let's make this fun. And let's talk about... Wow, there's a name I haven't seen for a while. What's up, Canadian Invincible Comics? Let's talk about some spoilers. Let's get into that and break it down, and give it a rating out of 10. And anybody that has seen it, please feel free to join. So I'm gonna just go ahead, create a banner here. So spoilers.
Spoiler time
for Eternals. Gotta break it down. There we go. So now everybody's been warned. Let's get to some spoilers.
Yes.
So there is a twist to this movie, much like the comic books. There is a twist. So they're not really beings from another planet. So what they turn out to be is artificial life, maybe robots created by the Celestials to wipe out the deviants, because the deviants were originally sent out here to help wipe out the predators and let humanity just grow, because that's what they want. And we'll talk about why they want that here in a second. But the deviants decided to become their own predators. So now they sent the Celestials decided to send the Eternals down there. So the Eternals were created by the Celestials. They don't come from a planet. They weren't born. They were just created. And they find out because, well, through a series of events, one of them gets killed. And it turns out that the reason why the Celestials want mankind to flourish is because the planets, all planets, and this isn't the first planet they've done this with, have to reach a certain point in order to create a Celestial so he can create more life and destroy the entire planet in the process. So that's the big twist. So the Eternals are like, nuh-uh, not on my watch. Let's do it. Let's go fight these things. And then, of course, it doesn't turn out that way. A few of them die, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. Icarus ends up betraying them, saying, no, this is the way it has to be. We have to be the ones that bring in, what is it called? The emergence, I think?
Yeah, I think they call it the emergence.
Yeah. So we have to make the Celestial come out so we can create more life. In a way, that's a good argument, right? Like, you're going to risk just a few millions to create billions of lives. Like, it's a pretty good argument, kind of like the whole Thanos thing. And everybody else is like, no, you can't do that, Icarus, don't be a dick. And Icarus is like, nah, we're gonna do it. And then, just like the comic book, Sprite betrays them too. Um, Sprite was in love with Icarus, apparently. So you have like two love triangles. You have Black Knight, Cersei, and Icarus, and then you have Cersei, Icarus, and Sprite, which is a weird triangle because Sprite is a young girl, but is a god. So, that was the twist. Yeah. So the Eternals end up stopping them. Icarus fulfills his prophecy and flies into the sun. But like I told my daughter that I went to watch this with, no body, no death. Like, I refuse to believe that like they're gonna kill a character off like that.
They allude to the fact too that because they have the Eternals memory stores saved, they could just re-upload the same body and consciousness in their like maker mold facility. So like any of the Eternals that died, we could see another version of them, almost like how we're seeing a reset version of Gamora, where it's kind of like, okay, this is them, but not them. Because they're largely just like synthezoids. It would be like White Vision.
Which made me question. So you have each one of the Eternals has their own power, right? Like you have Cersei, who is a transmutate. She can turn certain things like water into sand or something like that. But it's not just non-living things, as we find out. You have Athena, who can make weapons. Icarus is your Superman. As a matter of fact, they make a comparison to Superman, which I found really interesting that they did that. They did that twice. They did that with Alfred when Kingo showed up with his Karun. Which I guess is, yeah, his name's Karun, which is like his butler, and somebody said, "Oh, that's like your Alfred," which not really, but
I think it's really interesting that they canonized DC in that way. It just like it jarred me both times that it happened.
Well, and it's funny because are they talking about them as comic book characters, or are they talking about them as actual characters that could exist in this universe for a potential, of course that's all fan theory. That's exactly where my mind went. I'm like, oh, no, but then they wouldn't know Batman is Alfred, or Alfred is Batman's butler without having a secret identity. But I just found that pretty interesting. They did it twice. But you have the character of Phastos, who like is good with machinery, can build machines, and I found it interesting that he didn't know that they were built. Like, how did you not know you were a synthetic being if you're good with machines? But that's just one of the few little gripes I had about some of the plot holes in this movie. And then at the very, very end, and we'll talk a little more about this, we do get a couple of end credit scenes. We get one that shows us the character of Pip the Troll, voiced by Patton Oswalt. Yeah. And you get the character of Eros, Star Fox in the comics, Thanos' brother, show up. I can kind of see that like having ties to the Eternals, considering Star Fox and Cersei both joined the Avengers around the same time. And then you get the other thing, which was pretty weird to me, and we'll go back to breaking down the story here in a second, but you get the Ebony Blade being brought up. So you get the Black Knight opening up his family's crest, this box, and out he pulls out the Ebony Blade. So everybody that has read the comics knew, like, oh, it's the Black Knight, right? Like, we all freak out, like, oh, he's going to become the Black Knight. And then we hear a voice, who I didn't know at the time until a friend of mine told me who it was, say, I don't think you're ready for that, or something like that, Dane Whitman. And it turns out that it was Mahershala Ali, the guy that's playing Blade, also setting up that character for the MCU. Those were the two big Easter eggs, and we'll go back to those here in a minute. But let's talk about the things we did like about the movie. Ødfel, I've talked a lot. Why don't you go first? What are things that you enjoyed about the movie? What did you like the whole thing? What?
I think this movie excelled in pacing. It was a 2-hour movie, and they had to not only introduce entire concepts with the Celestials and the Eternals, but also flush out a team of like 7 or 8 people, enough to have us invested in any single one of them, let alone most of them. And I felt that even though it had slight lulls, the entire thing had a really nice equal balance that filled right into the finale, and then had time to set up some next kind of plot lines with Cersei and the other Eternals disappearing at the end without feeling like it lagged or was too much crammed into one movie. I also, some of the characters were really well done. I like the changes they made to Sprite. I think having Sprite have this kind of unrequited love and anger because like she's watching Cersei kind of have and take for granted what she wants with Icarus was really interesting, since she had to be with Cersei most of the film. And also made her an empathetic kind of villain heel turn a little more than in the comics, because like
And in the comics, Sprite is a male.
Yeah.
In the movie, it's a little girl.
I feel like it's a little more like kind of frustrating, like you feel bad for her in this way, because I feel like in the comics it's a little more Peter Pan and you don't feel quite as bad. But there was just a lot that was really, really well done. I don't know. I liked it. I don't think it's definitely not my favorite Marvel movie, but I did really enjoy it.
Okay. I'll tell you the things that I did like here in a second. Setting up the MCU, Midnight Suns. Thank you for the super chat, Gabriel Carrasco. Midnight Suns. You got Moon Knight, Blade, Black Knight, Morbius. Cool to add Bloodstone. Here's where I went with that end scene. So as soon as my buddy Brian, big shout out to Brian, who's like, how'd you feel about Blade showing up? And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was Blade, but thank you for telling me. Apparently the director said that it was Blade showing up at the end. Just a voice. My mind didn't go Midnight Suns. My brain went immediately to Captain Britain in the MI-13. That's because, Black Knight was a part of that. So was Blade. Because I think people forget that Blade is British. So I don't know how they'll play it. I don't know how they'll do it in the movie. But I think it was really cool that was a setup to Blade. It's weird because that brings back this movie feels like a different movie. It's trying different things, and I'll tell you what. Okay, but I'm going to talk about the things that I did enjoy about it. I love the settings. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. They're beautiful settings with some practical effects. You all know I'm a huge practical effects guy. Bring back some, actual set building. Bring back some props. I'm in. Throw in some CG from time to time. I'm good with that. I liked. Oh my goodness! So there's a couple. It's hard to say Angelina Jolie, but that's not fair. Angelina Jolie always kills it in everything that she's in.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a given, right? Whenever you have her in there. I tell you who really did it visually for me, and the way that she was portrayed, and she didn't get enough screen time. And that is the lady that played Makari.
Yes.
So this is the first MCU character that is deaf, and the actress is actually deaf. So she was amazing. The fight scenes, like we've seen, I still think I like Quicksilver in the Fox X-Men, the way they do the speed there. But this was really cool to see her fight when she's taking down Icarus. She was the most exciting one. Her and Thena. Like I thought Thena creating the weapons was really cool. And Thena had the best, to me, had the best quote where Icarus was like, "You've never fought me," or something like that. And she's like, "I've always wanted to." Thought that was really cool. The delivery by Angelina Jolie was awesome. But yeah, Makari was awesome in this. Visually, she looked cool. When she yelled out, it was like that deaf yell. Oh, it was so awesome. I love that.
I'm excited to see more of her, because I wish we got a lot more in this film, and I'm just really just excited. They did such a good job making her feel powerful and scary, because I feel like speed types are easy to make the comic relief characters, whether it's like Quicksilver being quippy or Flash being quippy. Yeah. But her just like taking Icarus down was awesome.
And and the fact that she's not limited to like the things she can do with speed. Like you actually get to see her take down a godlike character, so she's not like just taking somebody's guns away, right? Like
Yeah.
she is beating him down into the ground. I thought it was really good. Am I the only one who noticed Angelina Jolie is rather attractive? Man, it was hard to choose between her and Salma Hayek, though. Ooh, but what were the other things I like? Dude, the settings in the staging that they did for the gardens of
Yeah.
Babylon, that was amazing. I wish they had spent more time there because the amount of detail and time they had to build that, the gate, that was really cool. Of course, the gate was somewhere else, but
all of the historical sets were amazing. Like that's another thing. Just all of the historical settings were just, I mean, they went above and beyond.
I love that. So Fastos was awesome. I loved Fastos. He grew on me. This was really cool, the way that he lost faith in humanity, but having a husband and a son gave him that hope and restored his faith in humanity. I thought that's cool. It's one of those tropes that you see in stories like this, right? Like where a godlike character loses faith in everything and then finds love, and through love, everything is possible. So I thought that was really cool. And he was a really good character. From the trailer, I thought he was going to be the comedic relief or the comic relief, but no, not really. He was more of a serious type of character. Very enjoyable. Salma Hayek, not enough screen time, but she's always great in everything she does. And I like Karun a lot. Oh, and the guy that played Gilgamesh, who was in the Train to Busan movie. Also, again, spoilers, but his character dies early on, and he has this relationship with Thena that isn't really brought to light. I'm trying to think of what else I really enjoyed about this. The freaking visual of the Celestial.
Yes.
At the end, when he kidnaps Cersei and the rest of the Eternals, and Black Knight's like, I have a secret. Wait, I didn't get to tell you what it was. Anyway, that was so cool, him coming out of the clouds, and it gives me hope of how both awesome and how they stole the thunder from Galactus, because oh my god, that was awesome, because he was huge. And I remember telling my brothers after watching this, I said, and I was doing the comic book math, because one of my favorite stories is Day of Judgment. So I'm like, I kind of know how many Celestials would fit on Earth, and they kind of did the math good. Like they did the sizing well for the Celestials. But that image where he shows up, that was freaking awesome. That was cool.
I like the movie was so well paced that when that happened, I was like, oh my god, wait, are we about to have a whole nother arc? Like, what is happening? Because it was just so like, oh god, there it is.
Now, some of the things that I was okay with, that I'm 50-50 on. So the CG. I think there were some really pretty visuals in the CG. Like whenever Cersei turns that bus into a bunch of butterflies, I think?
Rose petals, I want to say?
Rose petals, that's what it was. Yeah. That was really pretty. The illusion or the optic blast from Icarus, I thought those were really well done. And I think that, that also has a little bit to do, of course, with Richard Madden, the guy that plays Icarus. Just given that facial expression. Technically, he could just sit there and be like, yeah, all right. Here, actually, I have a picture of it. Like, he could just sit there with a blank face and just not give us a facial expression. But then there were some visuals that it didn't mesh well with the practical effects. I think Thena's worked well, but there were just some visuals that didn't work for me. And I'm mainly talking about the designs and missed opportunity, I think, of the deviants.
Yeah. They felt almost like Transformers. Like they looked too,
somebody else said that earlier.
Especially the scene where the one first absorbs the powers and like imbues each of the animal ones into like different powered up animals. Like I felt like they were all the cassette tape Transformers. I was like, these don't feel like they belong in this movie. Like what is happening?
They didn't look like anything original.
Mm-mm.
And maybe it was me and the way that I read that, or the way that I heard about this being one of the most unique movies. I was hoping that something like that would stand out, like the design of the deviants. Even the evil deviant. Oh my gosh, what's his name? Crow, I think. The big baddie that can absorb
Yeah.
Eternals, like that absorbed Gilgamesh when Gilgamesh died, that absorbed Ajak when Ajak died. I think even him, like, there's just nothing special about it.
Yeah, like
So,
I know we eventually got a humanoid deviant with Crow, but I was kind of hoping with how much they were like, oh, the deviants were like our precursors, and then some of the lines where they're like, what, you're afraid they're us now and stuff. I was hoping for a lot more of like I would have felt more like, oh shit, if they were a little less bestial.
mhm.
But they were just very like, I don't know.
I just okay, and this leads into the bigger thing. I just didn't know who the bad guy was. Like, and I know not every movie has to have one, and maybe that's part of the charm of this one. But was it supposed to be the big celestial, which was voiced by David Kaye, by the way? So big shout out to anybody that watched Beast Wars. Anyway, or was it Crow? But then I like, what was the point of the deviants? Because I didn't get that when I
So
was watching.
the deviants were sent to Earth to do the same job as the Eternals.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of getting attached to humanity, they just kept evolving apparently, and through evolution, they essentially, it sounded like, got free will from that at some point, and that's why the Eternals are synthetic, so they can't evolve.
Mm-hmm.
But they still gave them emotions, which I feel like they would have also just been like, let's cut it all out in one go. So I'm not really sure.
Yeah. So in the beginning of the movie, I got it, but then towards the end, I just didn't get the purpose of the deviant showing up. Like, well, why was Crow showing up? Was he going to help the Celestials be born, or was he trying to stop Icarus? And if he was trying to stop Icarus, they at one point said, "Hey, we have to go and help Icarus because he's still an Eternal." And that was just really weird. And then he went to fight Angelina Jolie. So that's one of the things that will lead to the negative things about this movie, because I have to talk about the negative things about this movie. So let's go back to that. It felt like this movie to me was very disjointed. And I want to say that might be because of the way that she probably directed the movie and had to be reminded, or maybe there was a secondary like production unit there that had to add some action sequences. But anyway, it felt like like taking some chances and making a different type of movie, but also being reminded that, hey, this is an MCU movie. We have to have things. We have to mention the Avengers in a weird way that didn't make any really sense, with having
Yeah.
these, omnipotent beings almost that are eternal in a way. Uh, hence the name. Sitting around a table talking about Captain Rogers or talking about Thor and things like that, it just felt really weird and almost forced.
It felt like it was just in there for the trailer. Like, honestly.
Dude, oh my gosh, you're not kidding, because I think a lot of it probably was. So then, disjointed and editing, I think. You like the pacing. I can see the pacing being a problem for a lot of people. So when I saw the reviews, because I didn't read the reviews until after seeing the movie, all I knew was the score was really low, and my brother was like, "This is lower than Thor." What's your favorite movie again?
Dark World.
Dark World. Yeah, no offense to you, Ødfel, but you might be wrong. It was just, I can see the pacing being a little off, but I think it was the edits and the way that she shoots the movie. So remember when I said you have this love thing between Fina and Gilgamesh? That's kind of understood, but they don't really touch up on that. I get that. That's cool. But you have this relationship with Cersei and Dane at the beginning, which I wish I was sitting next. I was sitting next to my daughter, and she criticizes movies probably more than I do. But I wish I was sitting next to my brothers, because I would have asked them, like, did I miss something, or does he know that she is eternal? Because it seems like he's okay with this monster that came out of the water. He's all of a sudden okay with his girlfriend, maybe potential love interest, using superpowers. Did they establish that she might be eternal or not? Or is it understood? And if it's understood, then I don't know if that came across well or if things were left on the chopping block. Now, that wasn't the only time that happened. There was another instance later on where I feel like something would have been better explained a different. Okay, like the Celestial just lays out the plot. It's a weird monologue that he just lays out the plot and tells Cersei exactly what's going on instead of learning it through time. And
I also felt like it was really weird the moment where Icarus finally gets to Cersei, and then like he can't just kill her, and we get that weird like flashback of like their romance, but it just feels like kind of pointless because it seems like he hasn't really given a crap about that the last hour of the film. And I don't know, I just didn't buy it at that point in the movie. I was like, it doesn't feel like he would actually, I don't know, it was a weird time for a flashback.
demons are supposed to look Thanos level ugly, but not like what they ended up looking like. Interesting. Villain nonsense 101. You own a race group of people. Tell them the whole plan. Why the F lie to them for eons? I just found that really weird. And for being around for so long, couldn't one of them have figured it out by now? Like, wait a minute. Because we did have Thena, right? Like she did have that thing going on with her. What was it called? It's something that happened to actual Cersei in the Avengers comics, where she was just
called it the whispering, but they called it like something like that.
Yeah, it's something that's going on that she's had all these memories for thousands of years. But again, it was one of those things that they kind of lightly touched upon and then moved on to the next thing. So I can see why the pacing was an issue. I didn't really have a problem with the pacing. It was more of, like I said, just those felt more like a bunch of scenes that were put together, and I wish maybe another edit could have helped clean a lot of this up and smoothed over the transition. I think the biggest fault for me, though, is that I didn't really care about the characters. I honestly, when Ajax died, I was like, well, okay, I just barely got to know her. When Gilgamesh died, I was like, oh man, wish he had stayed around longer. When Icarus flew to the sun, Icarus was kind of dull. As a matter of fact, the driving force of the movie is supposed to be Cersei, right? Like Cersei, she's, at least from trailers and from what I gather, has the most screen time, is supposed to be the character that you see the most and you develop a connection with. But I feel like even she was so underdeveloped. Like everybody acted the same. And I wonder if that was a choice made by the director going, okay, you all have been living for 7,000 years, so you have to have this confused, better than thou attitude about you and do your thing with it. And I think the only one that kind of did his own thing was Kingo, right? And
Yeah.
I think my brother told me that people really loved him, like the reviewers did. I did not find him funny. Like, I think to me, his comedic timing was off. It just didn't fit in this. The deliveries were bad. I actually found Karun funnier. I actually laughed a couple times at Karun's jokes. And I wish they had made him a bigger character. Not that Kingo was a big character anyway, because he kind of leaves the third act. He's there for like the second act.
I do kind of respect that power play though, because he was like, I agree with Icarus, but I'm not gonna fight you guys, and kind of just leaves and does his own thing. And I'm like, that's interesting, and I like that. Mm-hmm. Where he's like, listen, I disagree, but I'm not gonna fight you. But no, I agree. Like all the characters I got attached to weren't the characters in focus. Like I liked Thena, but there was really nothing to get attached to. I loved Gilgamesh. We were supposed to get attached to him because he died.
Yeah, I didn't.
And I liked what they did with Sprite. I feel like Sprite had a really interesting arc that made me invested in her. But like Cersei, Druig, Icarus, like I was like, I don't feel really invested. Like I like Makari, but also we didn't see much of her.
And I think this might be the problem here. You can't do an origin story for 10 characters in one film. I feel like she really did try, though, and I kind of like the jumping back and forth. And I know that can be an issue for some people, but I like the time skips. Like, oh, let's do a little flashback where we still have Gilgamesh and Ajak alive. And the other thing, I just remembered the other thing that they lightly touched upon, but they moved on, was the story with Druig. So Druig is living in the Amazon jungle, and nobody's questioning the fact that he has manipulated and taken over all these people that have built an entire village. Like the Eternals are making jokes about, Kingo making a joke about like how many followers he has on his YouTube channel. Nobody's sitting down going, dude, this is wrong. You're not giving these people free will.
Yeah, he has like a cult.
That was really strange. In any other movie, I think like that would have been a big part of that would have been an actual confrontation. Like you can't keep controlling people. In any other movie, Druig would have been the lead bad guy. Like that would have been the twist, right? The twist that you saw coming. So I wonder if that was if that was a decision by the director or the writers to like, oh, let's fool everybody into thinking all these comic book tropes that they're used to seeing in Marvel movies, and then throw a spin on them. Nobody really seeing the superhero, the Superman type of character being the villain. Obviously, they didn't watch The Boys or Invincible, but maybe that's what they were doing.
I liked it because Druig is the one that turns on them in the comics as well. So I thought pivoting it to this moment where you feel like they're going to go to the Amazon, you see his creepy cult, he sits them down inside. I was ready for him to turn on them there.
Mm-hmm.
Then. So I think like setting up this just really creepy thing, but then he still wants to help, but then they kind of gloss over the whole creepy cult. But I think it was kind of a nice fake out because I was really expecting Druig to be the one to be like, I'm done.
And maybe that's the whole purpose for doing scenes like that and not really focusing on them, but moving on with the plot. But maybe it was too much that they were trying to do at one time. You haven't even mentioned the Game of Thrones dude. Which one? Jon Snow, who always looks like he's lost, even in this movie, or Robb Stark. We didn't talk about Robb. I called him by his name, his Christian name, Richard Madden, not his Game of Thrones name. I'm sorry. I should have called him Robb Stark. The fight between Icarus and Makari made me feel like I was watching a DC movie we never got. This great Flash Superman fight, actually.
Yeah.
The fight at the very beginning, when we see the original fight of them, all of them fighting against the Eternals, I got Justice League vibes from that. Like the flashback scene. Yes, Kit Harington once again dealing with a Cersei. Nice. I didn't even catch that. Well done. And my brother actually pointed out something I didn't even catch too, was comparing Icarus to Superman. The origin of Superman are these godlike people like Apollo, right? So I didn't even make that connection. I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was the casting. Maybe the casting was a little off, but I did not connect with the characters. And if any of them had died and it would have just been Fastos at the end with Makari, I would have been okay with that. I think I would have felt a little bad if Makari died. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought like I got attached to the ones that died in the correct way to feel invested in the story. But I wouldn't say I'm head over heels for any of the characters. I'm excited to see them in future things to hopefully invest in them. But I can't really say I walked out like, wow, this character, chef kiss.
Let's see. The first Guardians movie showed the Celestials in the Infinity Stone info dump scene, and the central one is straight up Arishem from the Eternals movie. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And they even called, at the very beginning during that narration, they even talk about the Infinity Stones too. I've been posted in the news. Lauren Redloff's role in Eternals has led to a rise in people wanting to learn sign language. Now, that's cool. That is something positive. Okay, and that's one thing I do have to give this movie credit for, too. Besides my issues with it, I did enjoy some things about it. But the other big thing is, holy crap, I think this is the most diverse cast I've ever seen in a superhero movie, I want to say. I don't even want to say just a Marvel movie. want to say like a superhero movie.
I
This
would
is the most
agree. Yeah.
diverse cast. I mean, that. I mean, it doesn't get a pass for still having the issues that it had, but I gotta give it that it had its first MCU same-sex kiss on screen.
Finally.
Gotta give them props for that. You know, we've had characters in the TV shows, I think, kind of hinted at being gay, but I think this is the first time that it's happened.
Yeah, like usually if a character in the MCU has been mentioned as being gay, it's either been cut out, it's been referred to very briefly, or it's been said in interviews and like promotional material, but not in the film. So this is the first time we're actually getting them committing to something, and it was really great to see, and I think they did it really well.
Still doesn't make up for the things that I did not like about it. I'm just giving them props and giving them props rightly so. I think it's cool that they're doing that and cool that they have a diverse cast like that. So yeah, I had quite a number of issues. And I don't think this is as bad as the critics on the 2 weeks that it was on Rotten Tomatoes made it out to be. I think the critics actually loved what's his name, Kingo, and I did not like him at all. They didn't like the pacing. I think it was the biggest issue. I can kind of see that, but I don't think. I mean, it's worse than Thor. Like, to me, this is. It felt to me like it's one of those middle of the road Marvel movies, and of course I wanted it to be more, mainly because we've only gotten 3 movies this year so far. And we're on phase 4, and they've said that this was going to be the most different. Maybe I wanted them to go more that road of different. But I think, you know, I enjoyed it more than Captain Marvel. I enjoyed it more than Ant-Man. Still enjoy this movie much more than Shang-Chi. The movie does not deserve all the bad reviews. I mean, it's not worse than the average Marvel movie. That's what I was going to say. There are things about it that definitely stand out. Kingo felt to me like he was dealing with things as though he was from a different movie, which helped me feel like he was disjointed for hundreds of years from the rest of them. Maybe that was what he was channeling, like the actor, like, because he is a comedian. Maybe that's what he was going for. Just didn't, to me, it didn't fit. What about you? What, Ødfel? What was your biggest issue with it?
There was a couple things. I felt like, and I don't know again if this was the director's critique or what, but I felt like so many of the characters were so stone-faced for most of the movie. Like, I could not read anything from Icarus at all, and I don't know if it was the actor, the directing, or like a creative choice, paired with just
lots of people didn't. Dimitri, go ahead.
I don't know. It was good, but nothing felt above and beyond spectacular to me. There's lots of things I liked, but even though I liked so much of it, I still kind of left the movie going, And it's weird because, like, I liked the designs, I liked the sets, the story, the pacing, but I still kind of left just unattached to anyone. And I feel like, yeah, it's because she had a lot of groundwork to do, not only introducing a whole team, but a whole concept and a whole, like, cosmic tier of Marvel. But I felt like there's only so much they could realistically do in a 2-hour window, and that's ultimately the Achilles heel of the whole project. So for me, it's not my favorite Marvel movie, but I feel like saying it's middling is a little harsh. It was just kind of like, okay. It would probably be like in my top 10 maybe, but I don't think there's anything to like write home about.
It's pretty good. Edgar is saying this is probably my favorite MCU movie. It was loaded with issues, but it felt the closest to the kind of comics I like reading. That's awesome. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. That's really, and that's all that matters, right? You got something out of it, and you felt like it was closer to the comics that you enjoyed reading. It's just all a bit boring and bland. Couldn't care less about these characters. And maybe I'm trying to think, like, you know, the more I sit back and think about it. I remember leaving the theater, and I was telling my brothers, I don't know how I feel exactly. I have to think about it. And I think the more I sat with it, like, there were things that bothered me, and I think, did that bother me because I'm such a freaking fanboy? Like, would it have bothered me if I didn't know who the Black Knight was and him not showing up other than like the first 5 minutes and the last minute? Like, would that have bothered me as a normal, average muggle that goes to see these movies just because they're MCU movies? And I'm like, well, maybe that's part of it too. But then I would have been confused with the whole Kingo thing if I'm an average movie going person. Like, wait, that guy just was like, oh, like, hey, we're back together, yay! And now he's like, nah, I'm okay with blowing up the Earth. How am I going to like a character that's okay with blowing up the Earth? Like that's not a hero thing.
I don't know. I kind of liked him because he was like, who are we to deny millions of lives getting made over one planet? Like, if this is our purpose, then this is our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of found it interesting that not only did not all of the Eternals have the same viewpoint, but they also had different ways of going about it, right? So you have the Selma Hayek's character. I forget her name right now. Ajak. So you have Ajak who, like, this is my purpose, and starts to turn and be like, we can't do this. And then you have Icarus who's like, no, we stick to the plan. And then you have Kingo who's like, I agree, but I'm not going to fight my family. And I think it was interesting to see, like, all of their perspectives along with all the Eternals who are also like, we can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
It made motivations a lot easier, that not all the, like, villainous characters had the same motivation or same way to fight back. Like, Kingo was kind of just like, this is what I believe. I'm out.
Yeah, and his producer, the guy that had been his butler or whatever for 30 years, he was like, okay, I'm going to go with him. It's a big task to do, to introduce all these characters, get you to build, a connection with them, because you're not dealing with characters like, I think Justice League is an easier movie to do because characters like Superman and Batman, most people already know without having to watch any Superman or Batman movies, or even Wonder Woman, right? Nobody knows who the hell Icarus is. I mean, hey, no. I can't imagine anybody outside of comic, and people even in comics that read comics don't even know these characters that well. People were talking about Galactus for Eternals 2, but it better include the Fantastic Four. I'm worried Marvel had it planned out before the Fox acquisition. Would they do that? I think that would be a rewrite. Like, even if they did, that would be a rewrite, but they wouldn't have gathered, or they couldn't use Galactus pre-Fox acquisition anyway.
Yeah.
Because Galactus belonged as part of that agreement with Fox and the Fantastic Four. Let me just catch up with some of the comments here. It's probably would have translated better if it was a Disney Plus show where they had a whole season flesh out the characters and backstories. I can see that. I can dig that. I would watch a show like that.
I could see that, but I did like the budget it had for being a movie. I don't think we would have gotten nearly as cool of, like, effects and sets if it had been Disney Plus.
And like I said, some of the effects were awesome, and then others were, man, getting a lot of Transformers vibes. You're right. I agree. Did not like how Black Knight was used. Totally would have been a better Disney Plus show. Celestials were highlighted of this movie, and I really like the idea of a Celestial being born from Earth. That's the Dreaming Celestial, right? Like that was it Neil Gaiman, I think, the Dreaming Celestial storyline, where there is a Celestial here. Pretty cool. I've always enjoyed that one. People are talking about, yep, I saw that. It's not like Iron Man 3 didn't fit. Oh, you guys are having your own conversation. My bad. It's like Kingo being vain enough to star in 4 generations of movies and care about how many people watched them when compared to the decision he made at the end. Like, potentially numbers are more important. Man, look at you doing a character study. That actually makes sense. Okay, so he was concerned about the views. Or did he say, I don't care about the views? I can't remember.
He was doing that thing where he's like, oh, I have this many subscribers, but it's not about the views. It's about the passion.
Yeah,
So.
And then the 4 generations of movies. So I think you're onto something, Edgar. That's a pretty good character study. You broke him down a lot deeper than I did. What's up, Max? How you doing, brother? Can't sleep, so I just got on here. I thought the movie was somehow boring and rushed at the same time. Would have been better as a TV show, but then we'd have bad effects. Absolutely. Disney acquired Fox in 2019. They absolutely would have planned for Galactus in time since the delay. Ken Harrington is not a good actor. We have seen it. I'm not saying he's a good actor. It just, the man always looks lost in everything he's done. Like, what was it, Silent Hill 2? kind of play the same kind of character. He always has this lost look to his face. He's a good-looking guy, right? Like, don't get me wrong, he's a super good-looking guy, has a British accent going for him, has lovely hair. He's gonna get roles.
Maybe it'll come down to his voice acting since he'll be in a helmet the whole time.
Oh, I did like that little Easter egg because we were going to talk about Easter eggs about his uncle, about making amends with his uncle. And in the comic books, the original Black Knight was a villain, and that was his uncle. And eventually, when his uncle gave him the blade, he became the Black Knight to kind of redeem the whole family. Let me see. Is there anything else we want to talk about before giving our final score and letting everybody?
I'm really hoping we get weird British monster hunting Marvels so bad between this and Blade. And I want the Bloodstones. I want the Bloodstones so bad. Give us like British monster hunting Marvel.
Okay. So if you've seen this movie, please. I think that's all we're going to talk about, right? I think that's it. I mean, it's our breakdown. That was the breakdown. We gave you the Easter eggs. And let's talk about the end credits really quick. So I mentioned when I heard it was Blade talking to Black Knight, I immediately went with Captain Britain and the MI-13. Still would be an awesome show. I'd watch that. What did you think? Like, did you even recognize the voice, or were you like, who's talking to him?
I didn't recognize the voice. I was hoping it was gonna be Bloodstone related, if I'm being honest. I didn't even think about Blade. I was like, I hope that's like Colin or something. I want this weird monster hunting family. I want these twins. I want it tied in. And then when I heard it was Blade, I'm like, I'm excited. Maybe we'll still get monster hunters and still get them. But I was kind of hoping like we'd get that whole weird subsect. But I just want to see the Bloodstones and something. So I'm biased.
Okay.
But I had no idea it was Blade until like after I got home from the theater.
Same here. What about the first end credit with Star Fox and Pip the Troll just randomly showing up?
I'll be real. I went to the theater with two people who know Cosmic Marvel way, way more than me. And as soon as Pip came out, they both were like, and I was like, what? I don't get it. What's happening? And then I was like, wait, is that Harry Styles? What is happening? And like,
is that who it is? Oh my God. Harry Styles, Star Fox?
Yeah. So I'm excited for it now that they've explained to me the character, but I don't read enough Cosmic Marvel to have really gotten the full effect of that one.
I was never the biggest Star Fox fan, even before Dan Slott did his thing on She-Hulk, which I think still is a messed up storyline. I don't think it's ever been retconned. Long before that, even when they try to fit him into the Avengers Infinity Gauntlet, I don't know. I just never really liked the character. He was okay at best. So I wasn't that excited. I was excited for Pip to show up. Anybody that's part of the Infinity Watch, I'm like, oh my God, it's so-and-so. So you didn't know who it was. You know, that reminds me of, I love sharing this story. Going to see Guardians of the Galaxy 1. And we didn't go opening night. I waited because I actually had no faith in that movie. And then it turned out to be one of my favorite ones. But the end credit, right, with Howard the Duck showing up. Now, we were seeing it with normal people, right? The theater was still packed. And the kids in front of us were like, what? Why is Donald Duck at the end of this movie? And then one of the other kids was like, that's because Disney's buying the Marvel universe, so they have to put their characters in there. And I'm like, God damn, nobody knows who the hell Howard the Duck is. And I'm not saying a word because my friends, I went with two other comic book people, and they knew who it was. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
I've just started reading like vaguely cosmic stuff. I've never gotten into it before. So like when he said Eros, I had like a vague idea just because of namesake, but I have no idea about the Marvel character until they explained it to me. I was like, I don't know what's happening.
Wonder how they'll introduce the FF. Surely not another origin story, but they would have been front and center in the fight with Thanos, unless they were in another universe, right, Steven? Because we already have been introduced to the idea of a multiverse, and from the pages of Ultimate Fantastic Four, we do know that that's how they got their powers. So it'd be kind of, it would be a quick introduction if you do that. Oh, it's another superhero team from another universe. Cool. I had a cringe moment at the theater when all these non-comic book people went crazy screaming and clapping for Harry Styles coming up. Yeah, apparently Harry Styles is a pretty popular dude, huh? Blade and the Black Knight. I wish they would have assembled the leather jacket year since Cersei was also part of that. Comic book movies for non-comic book people, wrong concept. But if it wasn't for the non-comic book people, they wouldn't be as popular and they wouldn't make the money that they are. I wish, dude, that comic book movie people would buy comic books. That's my wish. But that's hardly the case. Look at all these movies, man. Multi-million dollar, billion-dollar movies. Look at comic book sales. It sucks. But FF are stuck in the negative zone. Another little that's another option they could do. About 80% of my theater was just there for Harry stuff. Shut up, Edgar. Are you serious? Where do you live, man? That can't be real. I refuse to believe that. I don't even know what band he's in.
He was in One Direction. I think he just something now.
It would be cool if FF and Blue Marble share an origin in the 60s. FF got trapped in another realm. Blue Marble went into exile. They both return in the present. Yeah, I like that. They should not make them as my thing. You don't think they should make comic book movies? I don't know. I think I will. Like 12-year-old me would love to be like. My mind would be blown. I wanted an X-Men movie. I wanted an Avengers movie when I was a kid. I wanted that freaking James Cameron Spider-Man movie so bad. And look where we are now, man. We're living in the glory days. If the movies, comic books would not be as acceptable as they are in culture, and we're still a long way from Japan, if not for the movies. Look how many kids are wearing T-shirts with the X-Men. They probably don't even know who the X-Men are, but I think that's really cool, man.
I think even though not every comic book movie person is reading comics, the comic industry is staying as alive as it is because of these movies, because it's getting people into it. I think we'd see a lot less new readers if not for these movies the last decade.
Absolutely. I know right off the top of my head, like, that's too many. 7 people that have gotten into comics because of comic book movies. So
I did.
There you go. See? Look at I know it's 8 people now. 2 of my co-hosts. 3 now with Ødfel. So I think they do help. And Tapanji, thank you so much for the super chat. I like that. I'm going to go watch it on the IMAX again in India. Good for you, brother. Good for you. All right. Everybody that has seen this movie, including us two, and ladies first, what would you all give this movie out of 10? I saw some scores earlier, but if y'all don't mind typing it down again. Let's see, out of 10. Ødfel.
So I think for me, there was a lot I liked. There was quite a bit I didn't like, but none of it was consequential enough for me to really give it a too harsh of a score. So for me, it was probably like a 7, a solid 7.
Solid 7. I like that. This to me, okay. It's, oh my gosh, this is hard. Because there are things that I did have issues with, and I mean strong issues with. And there are things that I really liked. I'm going to call it halfway. Man, I think I'm going to go with a 6.5. 6.5 out of 10. It's one of the better middle of the road Marvel movies to me, right? I think 6.5 is probably a lot more fair than I thought I was going to give it to, and that's after some thinking. Cause after leaving the theater, I was like, I didn't dig this. But let's see what the chat thinks. So Ødfel gave it a 7. I gave it did you give it a 7?
I gave it a 7, yeah.
Okay. I give it a 6.5. All right, 7.7 precise. 6, 7, 7.5, 8, 7 out of 10, 6 pips out of 10. I like that. 8, I really liked it. That's awesome, Ryan. Look at Edgar, really liked it. Maybe I need to see it again. 9.5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. James, my buddy, 7 out of 10. 9 out of 10. One of my favorite MCU movies, if not the favorite. The high concept is perfection. I love it. That's awesome. Being generous here. Yeah, me too, man. 6.5 out of 10. IMAX was really good. 7 out of 10. Late to the party. What's up, Matt? Give it a 7. He wants to see it again. I would like to give Eternals an 8 out of 10 for the movie and what it sets up. More than the movie by itself. So, lots of... on average, I think we were right around the same ballpark. There's a few people that really liked it a lot more. I haven't seen a really low score. I remember somebody gave Chong-Chi when we were doing this live. like a really low score, like a 2 or a 3.
Yeah, I was surprised because I really liked Shang-Chi, so I was like, damn.
I don't trust this comment. Best movies in Shawshank Redemption. First of all, how dare you? It's a great Stephen King story. Frank Darabont's the man. It was Frank Darabont, wasn't it? 7.5. Not everybody liked it. 5 isn't really liking it. Giving Shang-Chi a 2 is straight up goofy. I like Shang-Chi. I didn't have an issue with it. Go and visit Berlin. They have the original Gate of Babylon in a museum. That's awesome. Maybe Walt can go on a tour. Maybe I can go visit Walt. Also on Shawshank, that prison is haunted as hell. Like the real prison in the movie?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Where is
it's in Ohio. It's where I am. It's probably like an hour north from me. I think it's called the Ohio State Reformatory now.
Man, this is my brother giving me a super chat. Dude, I'm just going to have to pay you back. I give it an 8.5. You're just wrong. Me or Ødfel? Are you saying my co-host is wrong? She gave it a 7. Manuel, where are you at now? 2 out of 10 for Shang-Chi. What do people expect? Damn.
Have them a Starbucks. Be like, thanks for the super chat.
2 out of 10. Yeah, I liked it. The Shang-Chi trailer was awful. The trailer.
The trailer is mostly the bus scene, and I did not expect the movie to be as deep as it ended up being. So I'll give credit to that.
I like the movie. Omar's biased to Shang-Chi because he loves Awkwafina with a passion. I do not. You know that is a lie. Not like Awkwafina at all. Just got back from work. What's up, dude? How you doing? What's up, Ødfel and Uncanny Senpai? Haven't watched the Eternals yet, but my favorite solo is Winter Soldier movie. So you like Captain America? You mean Captain America 2? That's what you mean. You don't mean Winter Soldier. That's what you mean. Okay. Omar, does it really make sense that the person at the end is Blade? I thought it was Jeffrey Wright. No, it's the director said that it is Blade, the actor. So this is his first on-screen appearance as Blade, which interesting. I don't know where they're gonna go with that, especially since it's. I was thinking like, okay, your girlfriend, maybe not. I really don't know the relationship because it was kind of just barely touched upon. Just got kidnapped by a big giant cloud, and you're gonna go home and pick up your blade. How's that gonna help? Like, what's gonna happen?
Go fight this guy.
Like, you gotta find a spaceship first, dude. How's that gonna happen, man? Like, no. Thank you for the super chat, Tapanji. On another note, thanks for making me poorer, mate. Because of you, I ended up buying most of my omnibuses. It's what I do, brother. It's what I do. I'm glad that you're spending your money wisely. Do you think Shang-Chi 2 would be more like James Bond meet Enter the Dragon like the old comics? Well, no, somebody here hasn't seen it yet, I don't think. So I don't think it's on Disney Plus yet, is it?
It just dropped on Disney Plus, I think, today or this Friday. One of the two. It's this week, though.
All right. So I'll wait for spoilers to talk about that maybe next time. I figured he'd go to Sprite with the sword and see what they can do. Oh, that's right. Sprite's still around. And that was one thing we didn't talk about was at the end. I like that little loophole of like, holy crap, we have a child actress. Like, let's age her. In order for her to come back to play the same role, we can age her by making her human. And that's what Cersei does. So that's when I said that she can transmutate things other than just non-living things. She can make Eternal a human. Pretty cool. Just nothing like the comic. Oh, the movie Shang-Chi? No, not at all. But keep in mind, though, they're their own thing. Like, I'm okay with that. I mean, the spirit of the character might still be the same. Sometimes I feel like these movies are made by people that actually read comics, and then other times I get Venom too. Saw the Ebony Blade scene. Looks pretty sick. I'm just ready for my boy, man. He's my favorite Avenger. Don't make fun of Cat Harrington for not thinking things through. He knows. He does look lost all the time, brother.
The Ebony Blade looks so freaking cool, though. They opened the case, and I was like,
yes. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see it take souls on screen. Watch all 3 movies on the same day. My like sequence. Oh, here we go. Eternals, 9 out of 10. Black Widow, 7 out of 10. Shang-Chi, 5 out of 10. all points. Yeah, Tony was awesome. That was one thing about Shang-Chi I mentioned, and I think you did too when we were reviewing it. It was like, the character was kind of boring. They didn't really give him a lot. But visually, it was just a really pretty movie.
Yeah.
You think Star Fox and Pip appearing that they may lead in incorporating Kate's Guardians with Thanos will. It was weird to introduce him, and I feel like we got one of those Robin moments from Dark Knight Returns or Rises. And what I mean is just you're just pampering the audience. They're like, you're giving too much. Whenever they say, you remember at the end of Dark Knight Rises, where instead of calling him Dick Grayson, she's like, I like your name. You should use that. And she says Robin. So like, that's just giving you a platter of an Easter egg. And I kind of felt a little bit like that here when they introduced Eros as Thanos' brother. I'm like, I don't know if that was needed. Like, it's just an obscure character. When the Collector got introduced, we didn't need to know who he was. Anyway.
I feel like it was a way to tie that character into something that non-comic book readers or just people unfamiliar with the character to make them give a crap. Because honestly, I would have just been like, okay, so he's a spaceman, but they're like brother of Thanos, and I was like, wait, what? But also, I think largely it's just all gonna probably tie to Adam Warlock stuff eventually. Like, that's the direction I feel like that is going.
Well, they've already stated that that's gonna be the third one, right? Like the Guardians of the Galaxy is, man, Guardians of the Galaxy is gonna be huge. It's got Thor, right? And
yeah,
Adam Warlock and the search for Gamora. It's got a lot going for it. If you don't know anything, this is a question for Ødfel. If you don't know anything about the Eternal comics, would you still understand and enjoy this movie?
Yeah, I really liked it. I had to ask a couple questions, but I mean, overall, most of my questions were about the post-credit scenes. I think, first of all, you get like a Star Wars title crawl at the beginning to explain the Celestials. And then from then on, they do a really good job of explaining stuff. I've never read an Eternals book. I might read the new one now because I love Esed Ribick's art. But yeah, I had a fine time. I enjoyed the movie. So
there's your answer. It's funny that we're mostly looking forward to Spidey 3, even though that movie's been spoiled for like, dude, I know. And pictures keep coming up, and I've been staying away. It's just getting crazy. Got in here late. Eternals was surprisingly good. What would you give it, Javier Pedraza? Just out of curiosity, since everybody else took a little bit of time to give it a rating. You think they'll make an Eternal sequel? I don't know. Did they make? I know it was like the movie made money, but then again, the world is still kind of half open, half shut down. So when something makes money, I don't know if that means, holy crap, we made a lot of money. Let's make another movie right now. Or if that's just, woo, we got our money back. That's good. So I don't know yet, brother. Star Fox gets canceled the moment he uses his powers. Yeah, no kidding, right? Like, if you don't know anything, in the movies you need to show. Here's something good. This is a good point. In the movies you need to show, not tell. I thought the Eternals did too much telling. That was my issue with the monologue, right? And that's where I dropped some points. Okay, fair enough. I like that. Fun fact, Venom 2 got its rating in the title. Is Venom 2 ranked higher than Eternals? It can't be. Like, no way. What? Ødfel, did you go to the Eternal premiere like you did for Shang-Chi?
I did not. I got invited, but I wasn't able to swing it. It's
Tommy.
I need to go to LA, but I'm bummed out because I really wanted to see Angelina.
Wait, you had a chance to see Salma Hayek and Angelina Jolie, and you said no?
Mm-hmm.
No. No. Like,
yeah. I'm low-key just kind of like saving my money so I can maybe do Spider-Man, but I was like, I can't spring for it right now, so I'm skipping out on that and the Hawkeye one as well, because the Hawkeye.
You got invited to the Hawkeye premiere?
Yeah, it's next week, and I'm like, there's no way.
Oh, man, dude, but Jeremy Renner and his app.
But no, I a lot of my friends went. It looked like a beautiful premiere, but yeah, I wasn't able to make it.
Man, dude, she's turning Kevin Feige down.
The carpet was gorgeous too. It was a blue carpet with all these like gold hoops and stuff, and I was like, damn.
Oh, I bought an Eternals comic after seeing the movie. That's awesome. Dude, I saw some leaked Spider-Man 3 pictures. That's all I need to see. I'm not watching any more trailers, I don't think. Since the movie came out, have you seen people coming into the comic shop buying Eternals comics? This is a question for you, Ødfel. I work from home, so I don't know if
I
you
was
have.
like thinking about it, and then I was like, oh wait, that's a question for me. I don't know. So I primarily work with the online portion of the store that I work in now. And I didn't see any come through last weekend. I'd be intrigued to see if any come through this weekend, just giving people time to see the movie. But I mean, they kind of dropped the Eternals new comic a while ago now, so
Yeah.
it'll be kind of hard for people to probably track down all the parts of it. So I could see maybe increases in trade sales for like the Neil Gaiman and the new run, but I'm not sure. I haven't really seen any come through quite yet, but it is still pretty early to it being out.
Oldfeld should have gave Omar the pass so he could meet Angelina. You mean Salma Hayek? Come, dude. You still got my picture? Where's my picture at? Come on now,
She's so pretty,
dude. Angelina. I don't think I have a gift for Angelina. I got Darcy, and I got my girl Salma.
Selma's so pretty.
Oh man, text plus moving pictures suck. You don't like subtitles, brother? Star Wars kinda intro in the beginning was a mistake. It is a cinema, not a book. Look at that. They should have explained it visually. I've been reading a lot of negative reviews. I've always wanted to get into Eternals because I love Jack Kirby's work on New Gods. Okay, so it is like he left DC to go and go back to Marvel, right? So he started doing Black Panther, he started doing Captain America, and he started doing Eternals. And Eternals feels like it was the story that he wanted to keep telling with the New Gods, but the New Gods had a lot more depth into it. You may enjoy it still, but I think it lasted about 8 issues before an editor was like, no, we need to incorporate more Marvel characters. Had a bit of everything, origin story, love, action, answered MCU questions, and good story overall. Hey, at least Venom 2 was over an hour shorter than Eternals. That's true. So Javier gave it an 8 out of 10.
I still need to brave watching both Venom movies, but I'm just like, I don't want to do this to myself.
Okay, what if you end up loving like Venom? Like you get a tattoo of Venom, the movie, not the comic book, because you love it so much, and you only go to like Venom premieres from now on because that's what you're invested in.
I'm like this much invested in Spider-Man as it is, and then Venom is like this much.
Wait, that much? It's Spider-Man, dude.
I'm starting to slowly get more into Spider-Man, but I haven't read much, and I'm not overly interested. So like I'm gonna start reading the new Kelly Thompson stuff to try and get into it. But
Kelly Thompson's run on what?
Kelly Thompson's taking Spider-Man, the new.
Oh, is she one of the Brain Trust with Zeb Wells and?
I think she's writing the Ben Reilly story. I forget who else.
Oh, the Beyond, Spider-Man Beyond. One YouTuber said the opening crawl was the story Celestials told the Eternals, not the true history of the MCU. Interesting. And it can all be retconned anyway, right? And Fred Zenator gave it a 6 out of 10. Have you talked about the love scene yet? I always thought seeing thrust and stuff was a bit much for an MCU movie, even though it was mild. I did. It was weird, right? I completely forgot about that because it lasted like a few seconds. I was watching it with my daughter, and I'm like, "Are they having sex?" Because he's thrusting, but it was like top half sex. And one of my pet peeves, by the way, like everybody that's watched my channel for a while knows, like one of my pet peeves is during sex scenes. I hate when the clothes are on. Like that is one of my biggest pet peeves on. Even as a kid, like watching the stuff that I shouldn't have been watching, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Why are these people naked? People should be naked when they're having sex, right? Unless you're in a hurry. But I get that. They were not in a hurry. They were making love out in the woods.
In the sand.
In the sand, that's where it was. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's not that fun. But anyway, it was weird. But
it felt kind of out of place and jarring, and I was kind of like,
yeah, I was watching with my kid who's 12, and I'm like, oh, they're just kissing because they just got married. It's what you do.
Just making out, you know.
She's like,
they got a little sweaty.
She's had 5th grade sex ed. She probably knows all this stuff. I don't want to know what she knows. And the Kirby run is good. It's Kirby. There you go, man. There's your answer. See, I never did dig the Gaiman and JR stuff. Eternals was just something I never really got into. But I really like the Kieran Gillen stuff. Or it was cold when they didn't do what we were doing. That is true. Could have been keeping each other warm.
Yeah.
Changed my rating a 6 thrust to out of 10. I can't believe we overlooked that. All 10 seconds of that love scene.
I think I'm just trying to black it out.
Maybe it was just not that memorable. Like, had they actually, you know what? If she wanted to make this artsy, then she could have totally made that scene completely beautiful by having them like fly having sex. Like Icarus taking her up.
The whole Angel.
Like banging. Is that what Angel did? Angel, like
with the Angel and Husk, I think, where he just like flies into the
God,
sky.
why are you talking about that stupid story? The Chuck Austin story? You know I hate that story. Oh my God.
I do too. But
she lies with angels.
Anytime someone is like, oh, like they flew into the sky and like made out and like had sex, I just like I can't unsee it.
You just have to bring up that stupid ass story. Icarus soaking with Cersei. Dude, I mean, think about that. That would have been like a first for an MCU or a superhero movie. It would have been banging around the different planets. She could have made it artsy and pretty and lovemaking, and that's what it's supposed to be. But instead, they're banging it out in the sand. Who's getting thrusted? My girl Angelina? No, my girl. What's her name?
Gemma Chan.
Gemma, who was also, we didn't talk about that. Minerva, Dr. Minerva in Captain Marvel, but playing a different character.
I'm kind of sad because like I felt like Minerva was a little wasted, and I'd like to see more of her. And now I don't think we ever will. And Cersei was not that likable, but I mean, at least we'll see more of Gemma on the MCU now.
True. That'd be too much The Boys, probably. No, I said keep it artsy, keep it classy. Don't actually, go grotesque detail showing everything. Just you keep it. You can make making scenes artsy. I think that could be done. And if she wanted to make something unique, maybe that's what she should. Maybe the director's cut will have that. Now I'm just stuck.
You can make it like silhouetted if they're flying,
Mario Rodriguez is saying Sprite was his favorite character in the movie. I kept looking at the young girl that played Sprite, and all I kept saying was Claire Danes, like a young Claire Danes from My So-Called Life. That's all I kept seeing. I don't know if maybe I'm too old for that. Like, y'all don't know what I'm talking about, My So-Called Life. But anyway, Claire Danes was a cutie on My So-Called Life. And I like the fact that Cersei forgave Sprite so easily after being stabbed in the back, like no consequence. It's been 5,000. They've been around for 7,000 years, right? I'm okay with that.
I also feel like her motivations were kind of laid out in a way where Cersei was empathetic. It's not like she was just like, I'm out, bye. Like it was kind of like she had a clear motivation that I think Cersei was able to kind of empathize with in a way that she's like, I want to give you this thing that will fix the frustration you're feeling. Mm-hmm. Rather than just like condemn her as a villain and be like, bye. I
will say I do agree with him in the whole thing with Icarus turning and then just flying into the sun. I mean, even if that's his the whole prophecy of Icarus flying too close to the sun, whatever. Even if it's that, I felt like it's a weird thing to forgive somebody that was just trying to kill you, killed Ajax, and then say, oh, okay, yeah, he flew into the sun. We're cool. Everybody's cool. There's a giant celestial hand now.
The entire, the moment he flies to Cersei, to him flying into the sun, all of it just made no sense to me. Like, everything he did from that point on, I was just like, I don't
know. Not to be hella Asian, but Gamma Chan is fine. Not to be hella Hispanic, but you're right. She is. I like her more in blue, though. Like, when she's all blued up and as Minerva, she was cute. So I'm glad she's doing some stuff in the MCU. Sadly, her character was just a little boring for me, though. Ødfel on shots. Have you moved on to shots now?
I switched from wine to sake wine. So I'm still just drinking wine.
Classy there. Humor was the one of the MCU's worst by far. I agree. It wanted to add that MCU humor, and it just fell flat. I did, like I mentioned earlier, I did like the butler, Karun, or whatever he really was, the producer, whatever he was, more than Kingo as far as the humor. I think he laid the humor more, and I wish he had been a bigger part of this. As an Indian, I can say that the Bollywood scenes were cringy, and they weren't even good. I've seen good Bollywood scenes. I was expecting more, I don't know, oomph. Is that the right word?
Like I appreciate they chose Bollywood to make it not too central to the US, but I feel like they easily could have kept it canon to the comics and made him like a silent movie star into like golden age Hollywood into like whatever and had it come across a little less cringy. But
I couldn't tell if the flying into the sun thing was supposed to be him flying too close by trying to wake the Celestial without his family, or if it was that he caved and helped by joining the Unimind. I think I go back to my no body, no death. So it could be a little bit of both. I think he might still be out there. Listen, the Bollywood movie song is on the OST and it rocks. Okay, I will take your word for it, brother. But you do have an avatar that says Cyclops was right. He's only been right like 3 times in his life. Icarus flying into the sun after realizing he screwed up was like an upset teenager slamming the door to his room and sulking all day. Well said. Well said. He left Cersei because of how much he loved her. He killed Ajax for his beliefs. At the end, his love for Cersei won out the guilt of what he did to his family and drove him to do what he did. I wasn't okay. And when I was talking about that scene, I wasn't really talking about his perspective. I was talking more about the forgiveness from the Eternals, who, you know, he just did some horrible things and he's allowed to fly. And I know he gave her that look of like, I'm gonna go kill myself. I guess that's the look. But still, I would have been like, you let him go? You let Icarus go? What?
yeah, like death almost seems too merciful in that situation. Like it would have been harder for him to like have to come to terms with it, I guess. I don't know.
There we go. I had to hide that comment. Also, that it played out like the story Sprite said about them, which was pretty funny. Every Eternal character was important to the story. Hopefully, they do this with the next X-Men movie. Interesting.
My chair keeps leaning so far back.
And on that note, let's wrap it up. And I just want to take this time to thank my co-host for joining me. You want to review Hawkeye here in
sure.
episode when it comes out in a couple weeks, I think, right?
Yeah, because I think so. The premiere is next week, so I think it might come out either the week of Thanksgiving or the week after Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. We can do it in 3 episode chunks again, or we can review the whole thing at once. I'm cool with whatever.
Okay, yeah. Maybe we'll do the first episode and then come back and do I think it's 6 episodes.
So is it only 6?
I think. I really don't keep up with these things.
I heard they're dropping 2 for the premiere, so we could do one just of the first 2 if you wanted.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. But we're not flying out, fortunately. We're just going to watch it from the comfort of Disney+.
Yeah. I'm like, with holidays coming up, I'm like just saving up for Spider-Man right now and hoping I get
Spider-Man. That's a good idea. I just want to thank everybody for joining us for this live episode. And if you're watching this later, leave your comments down below. What would you rate it out of 10? And more importantly, Ødfel. Here, let me close this really quick. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so thank you for having me again. I love doing these. I am Ødfel on pretty much every platform. I have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Vero, TikTok, and a Patreon now. So make sure to go check it out. I use this username on pretty much everything. On Twitter, it's a 0, but on everything else, it should be just a normal O.
Okay. So everybody go and check out. She has amazing cosplay. Amazing co-host. So, and I will be back tomorrow with a video. I think I'm doing the advanced look at Cloak and Dagger Volume 2, baby. So everybody, thank you for joining us. Have a great night, great morning whenever you're watching this. And smash that like button before you leave. Or as you're watching it. Whatever. Have a great night, everybody.